Hello and welcome, my name is Andreas Dick. As part of my videos on esoteric Christianity, I would like to introduce you to the interpretation of the parables of Jesus in the New Testament by the Greek Cypriot mystic Stylianos Ateshlis, called Daskalos. In his wonderful little book, The Parables and Other Stories, Ateshlis comments on many of the well-known parables as they were allegedly told by Jesus. In this video, we are exploring two parables, the parable of the wedding feast and the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. Let me make a brief remark before we begin. I am not officially representing the system for the research of the truth as taught by Stylianos Ateshlis. I am merely presenting his teachings as made available by him in books and lectures. This video should not be used for any kind of commercial purpose or to collect any funds with it. Let's start with the parable of the wedding feast from Matthew chapter 22, verses 2 to 14 in the King James Version. The kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king, which made a marriage for his son, and sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding, and they would not come. Again he sent forth other servants, saying, Tell them which are bidden. Behold, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready. Come unto the marriage. But they made light of it, and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. And the remnant took his servants, and entreated them spitefully, and slew them. But when the king heard thereof, he was wroth, and he sent forth his armies, and destroyed those murderers, and burned up their city. Then saith he to his servants, The wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy. Go ye therefore into the highways, and as many as ye shall find, bid to the marriage. So those servants went out into the highways, and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good, and the wedding was furnished with guests. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he saith unto him, Friend, how camest thou in hither not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then said the king to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. According to Daskalos, the wedding feast or the big dinner party in the version of Luke stands for creation. Creation through Christ the Logos, the Son, as the expression of God through whom everything was made. Creation encompasses all three worlds, the noetic, the psychic, and the material world. Although people were invited to partake in the feast, that is, in creation or the kingdom of heaven, they treated it as something to play with. They didn't accept the invitation. Daskalos points out that this parable was especially directed at the Jews, God's chosen people, who had got stuck in their own way of living in the material world. In Luke's version of the parable, each of the invited guests gives an excuse which is like saying, I don't care about your kingdom of heaven, I only care about what fulfills my material wishes. The invitation means living properly in accordance with the joy of God. Living with love and not in a world of separation. The king was angry and sent a message to his servants, that is, to the angels and archangels, to bring everyone to the feast. They should not confine themselves only to the Jewish nation. The aim of life, according to Daskalos, is the kingdom of heaven within us, the kingdom of heaven everywhere, not only within the confines of those people who had been invited first. So the guests began to arrive. But to take part in the feast you must wear the right clothes, which means purity of the noetic and psychic bodies, of the mind and the emotions. When the king comes, meaning the law, of cause and effect, he found one person there without the proper mental and emotional conditions. He ordered his servants, the archangels, to cast this individual back into darkness, meaning ignorance, where there is wailing and grinding of teeth, back into incarnation in material life. Others may call it hell, Daskalos writes, but hell can be found even on earth, on the material plane. We shall now turn to the second parable, the parable of the rich man and Lazarus from the Gospel of Luke. There was once a rich man who dressed in purple and the finest linen, and feasted in great magnificence every day. At his gate, covered with sores, lay a poor man named Lazarus, who would have been glad to satisfy his hunger with the scraps from the rich man's table. Even the dogs used to come and lick his sores. One day the poor man died and was carried away by the angels to be with Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried, and in Hades, where he was in torment, he looked up, and there, far away, was Abraham with Lazarus close beside him. "Abraham, my father," he called out, "take pity on me. Send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water to cool my tongue, for I am in agony in this fire." Daskalos writes that this parable is a story of what can happen in the psychic world after having passed over. When Lazarus lived in the material world, he seemed to have a very difficult life. Maybe he was paying off some kind of debt. But just because he was in distress in the material world, this does not mean, according to Daskalos, that he was not using the divine gift of mind creatively. He might have been praying a lot, Daskalos presumes. In any case, in the afterlife, that is in the psychic world, Lazarus was in a very good place, in paradise, so to say. On the other hand, the rich man lived a very pleasant life while incarnated in the material world, but according to the law of cause and effect, his miserable condition in the psychic world was a result of how miserably he had used his mind before. Now it was him who had to pay off his debt. The fire and the torment mean the stings of conscience the rich man experienced in the afterlife, according to Daskalos, while the water which he begged for means truth, and his asking for it to be put on his tongue means that he longed for understanding. But it couldn't be done, Jesus recounts in the parable. Daskalos writes that the rich man had to understand the truth for himself. Of course, Abraham and Lazarus could have gone there, but it would have been of no use because he was not yet ready for the truth. Daskalos is keen to point out that this parable does not mean that every rich person that passes over will find themselves in the flames of hell. Daskalos pointed out many times that the invisible helpers in the psychic world could visit any hell or paradise to be of some help. They did not experience any gap or chasm in going from one plane to another, but they knew that there was a terrible gap between hells and paradises because it was not possible to take someone out of his or her hell and move them into a higher subplane unless that person was first persuaded to accept being moved. Daskalos said comparisons had to be used in order to show that person something better, but even then, they might not accept it. It's not easy to take someone away from old habits, he writes. In sum, this parable teaches the necessity to make good use of mind and to do our best to see the truth while we're in the material world, or to face the consequences. Let us summarize. 1. As human beings, we are invited to partake in the feast of creation by making good use of the divine gift of mind and by living our life on the material plane consciously and with love. 2. If we only care about fulfilling our material wishes, we are not making good use of mind and not living consciously and lovingly. 3. The law of cause and effect will then produce some kind of compensatory experiences for us, possibly in this world, possibly in another, so that we begin to live according to our true divine nature. 4. When our three bodies are ready and prepared to enter the kingdom of heaven, we will be given full access to the glory of creation. But if we are not ready, we will have to go back to more material incarnations until we realize the truth. The last thing I heard Daskalos say when I saw him appear in public for the last time was, "Live properly." The parables help us realize what that could mean. I hope this video was beneficial for you. Please hit the like button if you found it useful. Subscribe for more insights and exciting content. Thank you so much for being a part of this transformational journey. May you be blessed with good health and serenity, today and always.